Good evening, IL family. I was just turning something off. Excuse me for bending over. Well, happy Monday, and I want to welcome you guys back into our Monday night broadcast where we talk about positive living via simple truths. And if you've been tuning in for the last few weeks, you know that we've kind of been building off of the messages that we've already had. And so this one is not going to be any different. Last week, we talked about standing still and what it is that you are desiring or wanting, or what that God has for you, being able to come to you. And this week, I want to talk about insane focus. And I put out a post earlier today, and it talked about distractors and how those distractors would be there no matter what, but that you needed to keep focus. And I'm truly paraphrasing my post that I put up. But needless to say, we're going to talk about insane focus on tonight and why it is so important. And you guys know that when I say when you're working on something, whether you are, no matter what you're working on, one thing that you can probably agree with me on tonight is that it requires your focus. And so when we focus on something, we focus on it to the degree. When you focus on something, that means that is your center. That is your aim. That is your attraction. That's where all of these goals, these vision boards, this writing things down, this keeping things in front of our face each and every day to remind us what we're working on. That is where that comes from, because we require those things in order to stay focused. Most of us are so easily distracted and pulled off course that we have to have constant reminders. That's why even in the Word of God, He teaches us that we should renew our minds daily, because we as human beings, we can get pulled off on so much, but it's something about putting that word in front of you every single day, reminding you of who you are in Him and how you should live. And so on the night, I just want to remind you what intense focus looks like, why you need it, why it's necessary, and why it's so important when it comes to you reaching your goals, when it comes to you reaching those things that God has for you. So many of us are desiring things, and I've got to balance because I've got a message to give on Saturday, and I'm going to try not to give any of that away for those that are attending on Saturday. But I'm so excited because God has confirmed in so much in the days what He has to say to you, to the ladies that will be attending. But to focus is to make your aim the center of attention. And I want you to think about it in this sense. Have you ever heard when someone talks about when you're going through the storm, and you heard about the eye of the storm, the central part? They're like, that is the strongest part of the storm. And we as believers, a lot of times when we think about our storms, we have to think about Jesus as being that eye, that center of that storm. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I want you to picture those things that God has called you to go towards in your life in this season. I want you to look at Him as your center. He is the center of that. He is the strength. And so if you can imagine yourself in a storm, and maybe it's a tornado, maybe there's things spinning all around you, the wind, the gust, all the not knowing what's going to happen, the not knowing whether you're going to be able to make it through. But if you can think about it, if in the midst of in the eye of that storm, if you could see Him in the midst of your storm, and if all you had to do was go through that storm to get to what you had, would you not go through that storm if you knew that no matter what took place in there, no matter how much pain it was, no matter how much loss you experienced, that there was a guarantee that you were going to get to what it is that He had with you? Would you be able to have the intense focus to block out the distractions and to keep your eye on the prize? The person that came to me tonight, I'm not sure if you guys watch any Marvel movies or anything like that, but the Marvel character Wolverine came to me on tonight because I remember in a scene in one of those movies that he was going through a storm, and his skin is he had this thing in him that he was able to regenerate, and that is he was able to heal within himself. And so in saying that, he would go through things even though it was painful, even though it was tearing things apart off of him. He would sacrifice himself because he knew at the end of the day that he was going to come back. And I want you to think about yourself like that, not as Wolverine, but think about that healing power that he had in him. That's God on the inside of you. That's the Holy Spirit on the inside of you, that when you go through something, He has the power. That is the power that heals you and restores you. So when you've got intense focus, you've got to realize that what you're going to, it's worth it. It's worth taking the risk. It's worth experiencing the loss. It's worth the ups and downs. It's worth the people that's saying that you're absolutely crazy. You're absolutely insane. Because when you have this kind of insane, intense focus to people that are normally around you, you're going to look like you are losing your mind. You're going to look like they're not important. You're going to look like, why are you so intensely focused? Because most people are going to tell you, look, you can't forget about all these things. You were doing all these things all along. But sometimes when we're going through seasons to get to whatever it is that God is calling us to next, we've got to put some things to the side and we've got to focus. And so I'm going to read some verses for you from Proverbs, and I'm coming from Proverbs 4, beginning at verse 23 on tonight. And it says, guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. Avoid all perverse talk. Stay away from corrupt speech. Look straight ahead and fix your eyes on what lies before you. Mark out a straight path for your feet. Stay on the safe path. Don't get sidetracked. Keep your feet from following evil. And I'm reading to you from the New Living Translation on tonight. And I'm going to read a little bit of the commentary on that from my study Bible. But one thing that I love that it says, and this is really talking about keeping yourself away from sin and this and that. But even on tonight, I want to remind you that as you're standing still, like we talked about last week, and you're focusing and you're doing what God has called you to, and you got this intense, insane focus. And as the voices are coming in and as everyone is trying to pull on you, I want you to make sure that you check your heart motives, that you don't get pulled off to the side by the things that you hear, that you don't get pulled to the side by the fear and that fake stuff that's trying to warn you and scare you into not doing something. Even if timing, I was watching American Idol tonight, and one of the things that they were telling one of the young ladies is that, she was telling, Katy Perry was sharing about how she started early on and she really didn't come to have her season until years later. But let me tell you something, in the midst of that, Katy Perry still worked. Even though she started at age 13 and didn't really make it until like 10 years later, she kept working. Whatever it is that God is calling you to do, you got to keep working. You got to have the kind of focus that says, I'm not going to give up, because you don't know when the day is that God's going to say, you're finished going through the storm. You're finished going through the test. You're finished going through everything that you got to go through. And here it is. Here's the victory. Here's what you've been working for. Here's what you've been believing me for. It's sitting right here in front of you. So do not get distracted on tonight and pulled off by your heart motives, by those things, by the people that are talking inside your head, by the things that you see, by the doubt in yourself. Don't do that. Be confident in the things that God gave you. Have such intense focus on tonight that when people look at you, they're going to say, you're crazy, because what are you going towards? Because they won't be able to see. But what God is giving you, it is definitely true. And I just had to come and encourage somebody on tonight, because it's somebody that's listening tonight, that you are that dreamer that is desiring something. And I'm going to be talking to the dreamers on Saturday, but you are that dreamer that's desiring something and you're working towards it, and it does not look like it's going to happen. Do not give up. Keep going. Go through it just like God told you. And your focus, and I talked about your focus will reveal your heart motive. So on tonight, as we get ready to close this message, I just want to encourage you to stay the course, stay focused, have such intensity that no one can pull you off the path. Let the distractors talk, and you keep going towards what it is that God has for you to do. See, it's not about you. It's really ultimately about Him getting the glory. See, when people doubt, when you doubt, when it looks like you can't, that's when He gets the glory, because He comes in and He does that thing. But He requires your focus, because you are a steward of whatever it is that He's given you. And He's got to make sure that you can handle it. He's got to make sure that you're going to do what it is that you are supposed to do with it. And you're not just going to toss it to the side. So that means you got to go through some things. That means you got to risk some things. That means you got to invest in yourself and invest in what it is that God is giving you. But guess what? He's going to ultimately do the work. So let Him do the work in your life by being a willing, humble, and submitted vessel on tonight. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope that this encouraged you. If you are that person, stay focused, stay prayed up, stay on what it is that He gave you. I will talk to you guys next week with another conversation on positive living via simple truths. Good night.